Hello and welcome to the Beyond Podcast, Episode 7.
Episode 7. What are we talking about today, Big Steve?
We're talking about adventure. And I
Right.
know we've been back and forth on what to call it. Faith in the wild, true adventure.
Yeah.
But we haven't really landed on one that I think sticks. At least a short one. But for this one, I think I like the Christian life isn't a safe life. It's the truest adventure there is. Was that pretty.
You know, my 12-year-old son has a saying.
Oh, go ahead.
When something is cringe,
You think that was cringe?
that's a cringe title. Yep. It's
Really?
like way too long. It's cheesy. Can we just say something like living a life that doesn't stink?
You know, I have friends that have a saying. They say cringe.
Oh, is that cringe?
That might be cringe. What about just, I do like the idea of the Christian life being the truest adventure there is.
and that is true.
I think that's what it is. That's
It is.
truth.
I think the problem I have with your original title, or
Yeah.
even any of the titles we've thrown out, is it reminds me of the old Michael W. Smith song, "This Is a Great Adventure."
Oh,
Are you familiar with that song?
no, but I'm
Oh,
familiar with
well,
Michael
yeah.
W. Smith. Uh-oh.
It's funny that you're not, because
Yeah.
I just happen to have my children's guitar here.
Yeah, and we need an intro song.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of G,
Okay.
fellas.
Can you sing the song for us?
Yeah.
You really can?
No.
Oh.
Saddle up your horses. We got a trail to blaze. Whoa, into the wild blue yonder of God's amazing grace.
Is that really the song?
Yeah, this is the great adventure.
Whoa.
So,
You know what? It does have a 90s.
and that wasn't that bad, was it?
It wasn't actually.
I was
I ex-
expecting a lot worse.
That was actually pretty good.
We're going to leave that in.
We should. And now that you have sung that and brought up Michael W. Smith, that does sound like a pretty cheesy 90s
Yeah.
Christian title for something.
So here's the deal. I think what we want to communicate is that as humans, especially young, healthy, full of life men and women, God has wired us for adventure. And not just the type of adventure that's like, hey, we're going to go on a great trip, but a purposeful, deep, risky, costly, sacrificial. I don't know what's coming next. I'm way outside of my depth. I'm nervous. I'm scared. That type of adventure. And that is what a true and vibrant relationship with Christ is.
Absolutely.
You agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Because the deeper I have, as I was thinking about this podcast, the deeper that I go in my faith, the more that I realize it's an actual adventure.
Yeah.
Like it's actually an adventure. So what is an adventure? How would you define an adventure?
So I think when you say adventure, I think of a quest with an unknown, not necessarily an unknown destination, but that the journey, the experience, what lies ahead is unknown.
An unknown outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge I have with an unknown outcome, specifically when I think about it in terms of our relationship with Christ,
Oh, sure.
is ultimately we know
do
the
know
outcome.
the outcome.
But there's a lot of adventure, there's that word, but there's a lot of unknown in the journey that can be scary. It can be hurt. It can hurt. It can be lonely. It can be whatever, like fill in the blank, right? Joyful, top of the mountain, bottom of the mountain, all that. Is all part of the journey. And I think that the nature of it that is adventurous is that we don't know what exactly we're stepping into.
There's no guarantees.
There's no guarantees in terms of like that it's going to go the way we expect it to go.
Yeah.
And so that, I don't know, that's probably a long, confusing definition, but that's what I think of.
Yeah. So I think a true adventure always involves risk,
Okay.
cost, responsibility, and transformation.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I like that. So risk, what was the second one?
Cost
responsibility,
and
and transformation.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think by that definition, faith is inherently adventurous
Yeah.
because it's all of those things.
Yep.
It's all of those things. Once you step into it, you're risking something.
Yep.
It's going to cost you a lot.
Yep.
It is responsibility is required
Yeah.
always.
So as you're thinking about that, I think of one of the recent adventures that I embarked on
Okay.
this past summer to go summit the Grand Teton
Yeah.
and climb the Grand, right?
Yes.
And so I was invited, Jennifer and I were invited to join a group to go do this. So there was, but there's a high degree, anytime you get up into that kind of elevation, anytime you're climbing, right? It's more than just a hike up, like you're roped in, you're actually climbing, you're on belay. It's multi-pitches, right? There's an obvious risk involved in that.
Yes.
People die on those types of mountains and even on Grand every year.
Yes.
So there is this risk involved. There's a cost. Like it is very expensive, just practically, to go do something like that, to fly, the equipment, guides, lodging, everything, right? It's just, there's a cost and a cost of time, training, preparation. Okay. So, risk, cost, responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the end of the day, I'm responsible to show up prepared, equipped, ready to climb, and with the needed skill sets to be able to help not just me, but our entire team get to the summit. Right? If I don't take responsibility for what I bring to bring to that climbing team, and I show up and I can't properly belay people, I'm a liability. I'm not an asset. And so, and at the end of the day, I'm responsible for both my effort, my attitude, the work that I put in to see this thing through to completion. And then the last one, transformation. And I can honestly tell you, for me and for Jennifer and I, that was a transformational experience to just set out on an adventure like that with some of our best, closest friends, and to achieve something as incredible as standing on top of that mountain, looking out over the Tetons was pretty remarkable. So,
Yeah.
I can dig your four aspects of an adventure.
Yeah, and there's with the transformation, I think this is something that is overlooked when people decide to count the cost of going on an adventure. Growth is required. You can't go into it thinking that you're going to stay in the same place that you were when you started. It is required. And if you don't choose to enter into that growth and kind of accept it, you are not going to get maybe the full benefit of an adventure, if that's a way to say it, or you're going to stay the same. Is that how to say it? Like, growth is required for you to go on an adventure, right?
Well, I think so. I mean, the reality is to embark, because there's risk and because there's cost and even responsibility, right? I mean,
right.
You think about those three things. anytime you step into an environment where those are required, it takes a degree of courage.
Yeah.
And I think courage is a necessary component to growth. Now, I'm not trying to create some kind of math formula here, right? But the reality is, growth doesn't come void of discomfort, sacrifice, risk, cost. I mean, that is how we grow. Is we step outside of what is comfortable. We stress ourselves. We stress our bodies. We stress our minds, and we move into areas of discomfort. If it's physically, right, we're working out, we're stressing our muscles, tearing them down so that they can regrow stronger. Same thing mentally, emotionally. It's reps, and those reps aren't easy. If it's easy, you're not actually growing. And so I agree. Like a true adventure is, it will create the environment for growth. It has to.
Yeah, the formula you said, discomfort plus courage equals growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. And I think both of those things are intimidating to people. Discomfort and what was the other one?
Courage.
Courage. Having to display courage. I think both of those feel overwhelming. They feel intimidating to a lot of us.
They do. For me, you gave that example of the Tetons. I think for me in the past few years, since we've started doing Beyond, I have a pretty good juxtaposition between comfort and discomfort, where I created a bubble in my life for a really long time that kept me comfortable. It was safe, it was predictable, and I had what I perceived as control. In reality, though, it wasn't safe. I actually didn't have control, and the predictability was an illusion, I think. To the it was an illusion. Versus coming out of that and deciding to start a new chapter in my life with work and leaving some things behind, that discomfort, as I have stepped more into that discomfort, I've realized that the things that I do in life, especially my relationship with the Lord, I ache for adventure. And I remember in the kind of the safe bubble I had created for myself, I had a really deep ache and longing for adventure. And I didn't know fully what to do with that.
Yeah. So how did you, because this, I think this is really good, because I think this is where a lot of people live. I would argue that sense, that longing for adventure is hardwired, right? It's not just a big Steve personality trait, like that's hardwired in us. My question for you is, what'd you do with that? How did you handle having that longing and that desire for adventure, knowing that you have, and intentionally or unintentionally, kind of cocooned yourself into this comfort world?
Yeah. So I can answer that in two ways. First, in my cocoon or my bubble, my safe bubble, when I had that ache for adventure and I had that longing, I would numb that, and I would turn the volume down, particularly on that, because I don't think I knew fully what it was that I was aching for.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand that the things that I was reaching for and trying to grasp to help with that ache uh, was just numbing that feeling, that longing, that desire for something more, the desire to be to not be safe, to take risk. And so I would use any number of things. That could be substances, that could be Netflix, that could be sex, that could be um, any number of things that doom scrolling, right?
Mm-hmm.
My phone, sitting on my phone, just choosing to look at things and watch other people
Live an adventure.
living
Yeah.
adventures.
Yep.
And so I think that's what I did. Now, at this point in my life, I think we all still struggle with that in some form of fashion, but I can see growth in my life because I've intentionally made myself uncomfortable for the past few years and intentionally done that.
Mm-hmm.
Intentionally set out to make myself uncomfortable in many different areas. And now the adventure is my life, and I'm starting to see how this adventure is unfolding and what the real adventure is. Meaning, especially in my relationship with God, when I think about throughout Scripture, from Adam, from Genesis to Revelation, it is one long adventure story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whether God is calling you to have dominion over something, or calling you out of your country, or calling you to step out of the boat, or calling you to completely change the direction of your career. That is consistent throughout Scripture. Right? And each one of those things is what we talked about, is the components of an adventure, right? Risk, cost, responsibility, and then transformation. And so I see, going back to our title, or what we want to try to say, but the Christian life isn't a safe life. It's the truest adventure there is. And how that can be a little cheesy, yet that I feel like that's truth.
Yeah.
That is actual truth, that our life as believers is the truest adventure.
Yeah.
Because it has all of those components to it. And it just so happens that in addition to that, we like to do literal outdoor adventures, right? And I think those two things parallel each other, like our Christian life and our outdoor adventures. How have you seen that in your life? How has your faith walk and the adventure of your faith walk paralleled your outdoor adventures and the things that you've done that you enjoy doing?
Yeah. I think that if anybody questions the nature of God as it pertains to adventure, stepping into the unknown, kind of this idea of risk and responsibility, right? The need for courage. If anybody questions that, go spend a few days out in the wilderness and just pay attention. I mean, you don't have to look for it. You don't have to go like turning over rocks and look for weird animals or anything. Just go spend some time in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And you can see, spend some time, to your point, spend time in the scriptures, reading the scriptures, and you see it. And so for me, I have experienced the God's call to adventure practically in the wilderness. It's like that's the classroom where I can experience the heart and the nature of God kind of played out before me. I can respond to it, and I can put in reps of what it looks like to trust him, to take responsibility for myself and my actions, to keep pushing forward even when my legs are tired or I don't know for sure I'm even heading in the right direction, but I know I need to keep moving forward, right? Like that, his creation outdoors, that provides this classroom for really experiencing adventure at a micro level, so that when we get into life and we're called out of our comfortable jobs or our mothers, living under our parents' roof and into what it looks like to be a man or a woman, and take responsibility for our lives and to begin to make big decisions, take financial risks. We've done some of that, and we know what that feels like. We know what taking that step feels like because we've practiced it before.
That's good. Here's a question for you. It's on the same topic.
Okay.
But I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Why do you think we often read the Bible as more of a rule book instead of an adventure story?
Yeah. I think it was John Eldridge one time say, and I'll butcher his exact quote, right? But he said something along the lines of, our tendency is to read the Bible as a textbook instead of a guidebook, right? Which is kind of a lot of what you're saying, right? Like if we read this Bible and our perception going into it is, okay, this is a historical documentation of God and how he has interacted with people throughout history. And that's what the Bible is.
Yeah.
And if we approach it from that standpoint, then as we read things, we are processing that information the way we would a textbook. Like, oh, that's interesting. That's a great fact. Oh, look at what God called David to. Wow, what an adventure for David. Look at how God radically saved Paul and took this man who was persecuting Christians and turned him into the greatest missionary to ever live. Like, wow, what a great historical account. But that's not how we're intended to view the scriptures. Is that true? Is it a great historical account? Absolutely. But it's a guidebook. When we read about Paul and we read about how he was evil, he was literally targeting other people to beat them, stone them, flog them, kill them, persecute them. And under no submission of his own, like he wasn't walking along the road to Damascus. We have no evidence that he was second guessing his direction in life or calling, or yet God literally in a miraculous, incredible way, saved him from that lifestyle and called him into a greater adventure that would ultimately lead to the establishment of his church and the spread of the gospel throughout the world, right? Mm-hmm. What if that's like not just a historical story, but like, what if that's a guy? Like, what if what God is telling us is, hey, look at Paul. What I did with Paul, I can do with you. Mm-hmm. The way that I used Peter, even though he was a coward in his greatest opportunity to be epic and to stand up and say, no, I know that man and I worship that man. He had this incredible, like the stage is set, dude, do something epic. And he cowers in fear. Yet he's the rock in which God built his church, right? Great historical story. I'm Peter. I'm Peter. And what God did in Peter's life, he can do in my life, right? That's part of the adventure. And so I think that's a great question, because I think how we approach the scriptures has everything to do with how we apply what we read in these scriptures. And you want the scriptures to come alive? Stop reading it like a textbook, like an encyclopedia, and start reading it like a guidebook for this great adventure that God has called you to.
I like that you mentioned Peter and how he failed.
He cowered.
And he cowered.
Which, by the way, I have done multiple times throughout my life.
Right, and that was gonna not like right. I know
You've seen
it.
You've seen it.
I think that's a good point, because we have, every single one of us, you, me, anybody that's listening, has two sides to us. One that wants safety and control, and the other that wants obedience and meaning. Right? And so I wanna call that out as I was praying through this today and writing down my notes and thinking about how adventure has been in my life and how meaningful it's been. Not just outdoor adventures, right? The things we do, whether it's on a wall or in the backcountry, whatever it is. That and my relationship with God and the adventure that has been. I got frustrated because I see in me the tendency to continuously go to be safe over and over and over again. And that we are called to step out and be courageous. We are called to that adventure, but I know that I have that man inside of me that doesn't want that. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, why? Why do I feel that way? And the low-hanging fruit there would be sin, right? The sin that we have in our lives is driving us to do things that are contrary to what the Lord wants us to do and who he originally made us to be, right? But below that, for me, was fear. This fear of losing myself, dying to myself, going the cost. It was the cost. It's like, okay, if I'm going to do this, what is the cost of this? And it's a lot. To fully die to yourself costs a lot. And that's very scary.
Yeah.
That's very scary. I have a good friend, a very good friend. He's been a childhood, since childhood, we've always known each other. And he recently took a huge step of faith, and it took a lot of courage, but he moved across the country to a new state to kind of start doing life differently. He had never done anything like this before. He is approaching middle age. And so that in of itself is kind of scary, to uproot from some place you've been all of your life and start over. And I remember it was, I think, the night before he left. We were sitting in my living room talking about it. And funny enough, what popped into my mind, because he was expressing that fear. He was expressing what it was going to cost him. And I remembered in, J.R. Tolkien, in The Hobbit specifically, not The Lord of the Rings, but in The Hobbit, Gandalf the wizard offers Bilbo an opportunity to go on an adventure. And Bilbo is terrified and scared because he's got the Shire. He's got his home. He's got all of his food. He's got all of his drinks. He's got all of his comforts. He's got everything right there. But he also has this longing. And I remember and I don't think I'll get this fully right, but he asks Gandalf, he says, "Can you guarantee that I will come back?"
Mm-hmm.
And Gandalf says, "No, I can't. I can't guarantee you're going to come back. But even if you do, and even if you do, you will not be the same."
Mm-hmm.
And I shared that with him, and I think I actually showed him the clip on the TV. But now I've kind of lost my train of thought here. But I think that there is some surrender that is going to cost us something.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's Diedrich Bonhoeffer
Mm-hmm.
that says, when Christ calls a man, he bids him to come and die.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's intense. When Christ calls a man, he bids him to come and die.
Mm-hmm.
And Bonhoeffer ultimately
Yes.
physically died because of his faith.
Yes.
And if it's that sense of, it's like Gandalf saying, listen, like if we're going to go all in with Christ, then no, the guarantee, the promise isn't a safe return. It's not safety. It's not comfort. It's not any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it is the greatest adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a life of purpose and significance. And it will meet the greatest, deepest desires of our soul. And if the decision that we make, either intentionally, or I think a lot of people just make it passively, they just,
What do you mean?
I mean, I think a lot of people don't make the conscious choice to say, I am not going to fully surrender to God's call on my life. They make 1,000 little choices a day that ultimately they just default into that position. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's the decision that they make to not engage with a local church, because that's not really, I mean, God didn't die so I could go to church. And, the church is full of hypocrites anyways. And, I work real hard during the week, whatever. They make that little choice. And then they make the little choice that is, well, yeah, it's not really that important for me to read my Bible. I understand the gospel. I know what the gospel is. And so they make that little choice. Then they make the choice that, well, I don't really need to be generous with my money. I mean, I steward it well. I don't waste a bunch of money. And so I don't really need to give money away. Right. And they make that little decision, right? They make all these little decisions that are protective in nature and keep them in this position of comfort. And by default, they end up in a place where they are not surrendered to Christ. And then there's those that say, on the other side of that same coin, that say, no, I get it. I see the cost, and I'm just not willing to make the sacrifice. And the reality is that those, like, when you make that decision, you are walking away. You're turning your back from the growth and the transformation and the intimacy that comes when we go all in for the sake of Christ. And when we truly enter in and say, hey, my daily work is to surrender myself for the gospel. That's my daily work. That's my daily call.
As you were talking, I thought of a question. So, why does surrender feel like loss?
Mm-hmm.
Even though we know that God says it leads to life, and it's going to satisfy, not ultimately on this side. I mean, I think it'll satisfy some deep parts of us, but ultimately
Yeah.
will be ultimately satisfied on the other side. But why do you think surrender feels like loss, even though God says it leads to life, and not just life, abundant
Yeah.
life?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, probably because we are losing something.
What are we losing?
We're losing our security in many cases. Like our felt security.
Perceived security?
Yeah, perceived, better word. We're losing our perceived security. Sometimes we're losing a vice or a crutch that we depend on, or that gives us that little dopamine hit that kind of feels like adventure.
Yeah.
Right? When we're staring at the screen and we're we're fixated on pornography, or we're doom scrolling or whatever, right? Like there's a reason that we do that. It triggers something in our minds and our brains that gives us a little hit.
Yeah.
And to fully surrender is to say, I'm giving up that hit, to surrender our sexuality.
Yeah.
Right? Like I am, as a grown married man, I am surrendering my sexuality to Christ, which means I'm not going to go act on the desires of my flesh to go pursue other women other than my wife for the rest of my life. It feels like we're giving something up that we need, or that is a part of our perceived security or comfort or even identity. And that's a loss. But it's like it's a short-term loss. It's a loss that ultimately comes to freedom, right? Like it's a loss that as we surrender, we experience freedom. And I don't know, but I think that's probably why it's hard, is because there's a real short-term pain associated with it, and it feels risky, and it feels like we're losing control. We're giving up control. What do you think?
The control aspect really hits home to me. Giving up control of my life. I think our culture is, it tells us that we can be, I guess, the master of our destiny. We have the tools to control our life, to make it what we want it to be. That is truer now than it's ever been, I think, in the history of man.
That we
have the ability to control our lives, and driving that towards comfort and pleasure.
Yeah.
And it is, the way I see it is, it's a trap. It's a trap. What is on offer to us through what the world offers is temporary control over something. And it is, again, I guess, that you have that perceived control, but it ultimately leads to dissatisfaction. It leads to anxiety. It leads to depression.
For sure.
Like, literally leads to these things. I've experienced it time and time and time again in my own life.
I mean, we work with a lot of young adults at Beyond, and we frequently will ask them, hey, tell us, like, where are you right now? Right? That's one of our kind of core questions early on in our experiences with them. And I mean, you probably have a better sense of this than I do. but certainly over 50%, probably closer to 75. It is a anxiety, depression, some sort of mental health battle that they come into the experience they have with us, and that's where they are in that moment, is they are deep in that struggle and in that battle.
They are. And I can say this from firsthand experience. I battled depression for years, for various reasons, including lack of purpose.
Yeah.
Including, I think there was a physiological chemical deficiency, and whether it genetic or caused by the circumstances around me, I know I contributed to it through alcohol abuse, right? Alcohol is a depressant,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's, to my point, is alcohol, for example, it is something that we use to feel better momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
It takes us away from the reality of what's happening, right? And it feels good to use it to numb, to dampen down the the things that are happening, the depression, the anxiety, the worries. And it's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's an actual trap that we fall into over and over and over again. And that is if alcohol and pornography and social media and food and drugs and you name it, if that is the best the world can offer, we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
If we don't have something outside of that, because I know the path where that leads. I know the path. And it leads to death, like literal death.
Yep.
It does.
And to surrender those things.
Oh, it's so hard.
It's so hard because it
so
means
hard.
you have to look that core desire right
in the face.
square in the face.
Yeah.
And deep down inside, there's something in us that knows that in our own strength, we can't overcome that.
No.
We can't beat that core desire. And that is why we have to surrender, right? I mean, think about it. Like, I can't beat this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So I surrender, not to it, but I surrender to Christ who can beat that. That's the difference, right? I'm not waving the white flag and saying, oh, pornography, you've beat me, you have control over me. It's quite the opposite. It's saying, I don't have the power to overcome that. So I'm waving the white flag in surrender to Christ's power to come in through me so that I am not in bondage to this thing anymore. And again, whether it's alcohol, drugs, sex, pornography, whatever, that's the surrender. But we have to be willing to look it in the face and to recognize our own deficiency, our own weakness, and say, I can't do it. I can't do it on my own.
Coming back to that question, why does surrender feel like loss? Or why is it scary? And I think a lot of times, and especially in my case, I don't like to look at my weaknesses.
No.
I'm scared of my weaknesses. I don't want to see that.
Well, listen, I mean, we orchestrate big parts of our life. I still do this today to mask those.
Oh,
weaknesses.
Absolutely.
I don't want my wife, who's the closest person to me on this earth. I don't want her to see my weaknesses. I don't want
Mhm.
my kids to see my weaknesses. I don't want you to see my weak. I mean, we work pretty hard to mask those things.
Yes.
I still do today.
Yeah. I, when I started confronting those things and my weaknesses, and that concept of what the world offers, kind of equals death. What Christ offers equals life.
Mm-hmm.
When that was it. That was it. Where if the world tells me not to look at those things, not to look at my weaknesses, right? Not to look at the areas in my life that are scary to look
Mm-hmm.
at. And so instead of looking at it, why don't you just cover those things?
Mm-hmm.
Cover them.
Yep.
Cover them. And doing that for so long, that's what I thought life was. I was in that trap over and over again. And yet it was and it was a little bit at a time. Now I want to say this, it was a little bit at a time, right? And I didn't do it by myself. By starting to look at my weaknesses, looking at my deficiencies, looking at where I had failed, looking where I had failed in relationships, where I had failed at work, where I was deficient and weak. It was hard to uncover those things, and I uncovered them a little bit at a time, and I didn't do it alone. But as I started to do that, especially 3-4 years ago when I really started digging in, the grace that was there, where I thought I felt like a piece of shit. I was like, I'm going to uncover those things, and that is what it's going to be. And that's going to be my reality. That's what I was afraid to find. Dig all the way down there and face all those things and realize that that's who I was. Deep down, that's who I was. And as I started to uncover those things in the light of Christ and what he's done for us, over and over again, instead of me hearing that I'm just a piece of crap, it was, you're a beloved Son of God. I have taken care of this for you. Remember who I made you to be. This is who I made you to be. So there was a freedom, and actually not just a freedom, but an excitement to get to a place to where I could say, yeah, I messed up. I failed here. There was actually an excitement because that was a growth opportunity for me. It was a growth opportunity. And I can hold it in the light and let the light shine on it because I know who I am. And I don't have to hide anymore. And I can say, here I am. Like, this is it. And God is not saying you're nothing. You're just garbage. He's not saying that. He's not saying that. And so as hard and as scary as it is to surrender, the more you do it, and like I said, I did it just little bit by little bit. That's kind of maybe my personality. I don't dive head first. Sometimes I'll test the waters first, but I'm still going to get in. Just test the waters, right? Just test the waters and see when that light, when the light of Christ shines on those things, what is it doing for you? Yeah. What is going to come out of that? Are you going to feel shamed and condemned and like you're garbage? Or what you will find is that God says, no, you're beloved. You're special to me. You're my son. You're my daughter. I made you and I want to refine you. Let's strip these things away and make you into the person that I originally made you to be so you can live out the real adventure. And that's going to satisfy your heart and mind. Right?
Yeah, it's a good word, man. Good word.
Yeah.
All right, let's I think that's a powerful way to land the plane.
Okay. Let's kind of bring
but
it in for
before we
landing.
absolutely land the plane, let's give our listeners, if you had to pull one or two takeaways from today's conversation,
Yeah.
what would they be? And by takeaways, I mean a principle or a call to action for our listeners that will help them as they try to live out this great adventure.
Recognizing that, maybe not recognizing, admitting your weaknesses,
Mm-hmm.
admitting that you can't do this on your own, and that's the first step,
Mm-hmm.
is admitting that you can't do this on your own.
Good.
You can't do it. And once admitting that, going to Scripture, going to God-centered community, and choosing to learn the truth about who you are, even in your weaknesses and your, even in your weaknesses.
Yeah, good. Mine would be an encouragement to surrender one thing. Pick out one thing that you know is something that you are using as a crutch or using as a cheap, inauthentic comfort or security, and surrender it. Surrender it. Take the hard way and surrender it. Not surrender to it, surrender it.
Yeah.
Right. And that would be my encouragement, is to pick one thing and do it.
Yeah, that's good. I'll say, let me say this. I'm just going to put this out there on the air. I've been doing that recently with some things in my life, specifically nicotine.
Yeah. Yeah, you've told me about that.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Zins. I've used nicotine since I was 17 years old. So it's become a part of my life. And that is an area that is, I have tried over and over and over and over to surrender that. And I have in some degrees, but I have fallen back into it over and over and over again. And at a point in my life now to know, like, oh, to realize I don't need this, and this is not who God has made me to be. And so it's going, and it is. I don't really know. I don't know how to. I don't think saying, oh, it's going good or it's going well fully covers. Because what does that look like fully? And I'm still trying to understand, what does that look like? I have made significant strides.
Awesome.
In removing that and continuously surrendering that in my life to the Lord.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Well, before we sign off, we have dates on the website for a March trek. It's going to be awesome, because Steve and I were talking about a little bit before the podcast of where we're going to go, what we're going to do. If you're between the ages of 18-ish and 25 and want to come out and train, do an adventure with us, we would love to host you in March. You can go to the website and check out those dates and read a description about it. And we appreciate you guys tuning in and look forward to seeing you again next time.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks
We're
for the
out.
conversation.